Welcome you all in today's lecture number 2, that is impact of academic stress on emotional well-being. As we previous talked about the developmental perspective of adolescent and early adulthood, how the physical, cognitive and emotional development take place, how development plays role that is psychological in nature. So let us start with this lecture. In this lecture, the learning outcome will be first we will talk about the academic stress, then the sources of academic stress, and then impact of academic stress on well-being and detection of academic stress and techniques to mitigate the academic stress. So starting with for the longest time there was notion in like people assume that the student population was least affected by any sort of stress and problems. But later on, with the advent of many researches, stress now is understood as a lifestyle crisis, and that is affecting any individual regardless of their developmental stage. So whether the person is of any age, there is the impact of stress on them, whether it is childhood, whether it is adolescent or adulthood. So Hans-Seeley has defined the stress as a non-specific response of the body to any demand for the change, and it encompasses the body's response to any mental, emotional or physical disturbance. So it is basically the disturbance of the homeostasis that is important to understand in the stress. Talking about the prevalence rate, so as per the National Crime Record Bureau, the one student every hours that commits suicide due to failing examination or any other sort of issues that is happening related to academics, and 80% is rise in the suicide rate during 1 year of the period. So it is not only alarming for the India as well as the other part of the world. So let us talk about the academic stress in bit detail. So as we know, the stress is a routine part of the human life, and every human being has experienced mild level of stress or anxiety from daily hassles and major events of life. And talking about the academic stress, then it is the adaptive psychological systematic process that occurs in learning environment, and student cannot escape from the experiencing these state. And this stress is basically the interaction between the environment and the students appraisal and the reaction for the same. So if we talk about the academic stress, then it is the context which is happening in the academic related matters, and which is very diverse and which is very dynamic, so it encompasses many other ranges. So let us discuss what is emotional well-being. Well-being is a state in which individual realizes his or her own capacities that to cope with normal stresses of life and can work productively and is able to make a contribution to his or her own society. And emotional well-being refers to the emotional state including your ability, your experience, a wide range of emotions, and understanding them, managing them, and maintain a positive relationship. So here we can say that emotional well-being and academic stress, they both are interrelated to each other and they both can affect each other. Now talking about the major transitions of in the student's life. So as we know, when the student passes his 12th grade exams, then he has to move to some other place for his higher educations, and at that point of time there is lot of transition happening in their lives, like they are like leaving homes, meeting people from diverse background with different culture in which they have to adapt, and some students they take these transition positively and enjoy them, and some students become disturbed because of these alterations in their life. And when it is hitting the severe level, then it influences the student mental health, and which may lead to the various psychological disorder like depression, anxiety, and many other adjustment issues, and it can have harmful consequences on the student performance, motivation and self-esteem. They won't be able to attend properly their classes, they won't they won't be able to have a self confidence that is needed in the in to excel in their academic activities. So let us talk about some sources of academic stress. So first is the academic expectation, the expectation that comes from the parent as well as the self, or even from the teachers. So this academic stress is one of the source which is responsible for the academic stress in the student's life. Then other is the changes in social circle. So with the transitions of life, they have different roles to play, that there is changes in the family roles, there is change by a shifting into a new place, having a new friend to make a new friend, and even that sometimes it is with the interacting with the new culture and new environment. Other is time management. So inadequate time management skills can overwhelm and pressure, and as one struggle to meet the deadlines and efficient complete task. So this is another thing which is very important in student life. When they are lacking with the management of time, then there is a probability of happening stress or leading academic stress in the student. Third is the financial problem. So worrying about the fees, living expenses, and lack of resources that are needed in the education. So this is another thing which can play as a source in the academic stress. Other is the imbalanced relationship. So disputes, conflicts with peer, parents, and teachers can generate turmoil and distractions in their life. Homesickness, as we talked that there is a transition when they are leaving their places from the home in some other cities or places where they have to go for the higher educations. So at there is like an evoking emotions of loneliness, longing, and detachment from one's familiar environment. And family support system, that is juggling responsibility between family, home, education, homework, exams, assignment, sometimes employment concurrently. So these are the excessive workload then that can affect the student or an individual life. Then fear of failure, fear of receiving low grades and experiencing failure along with an inability to cope with the setbacks. So this is the reason that can impact the student's life. Now let us talk about the type of stress. So there are basically three type of stress. One is acute stress, another is episodic acute stress, and third is chronic stress. So acute stress is basically the onset is very less, like short term, it is short term and intense, specific to a particular event or situations. So it is an acute stress. For example, like a student might feel stressed when preparing for or taking exams. This is one of the example. And another stress is the episodic acute stress, like frequent and recurrent episode of acute stress, like linked to lifestyle or habitual behavior patterns. And third is the chronic stress, which is long lasting, pervasive, and persistent over an extended period of time. So example of episodic acute stress is like a student striving for perfectionism in every task may feel stressed when encountering minor setbacks or challenges. The example for chronic stress is the student facing continuous pressure to excel academically and may experience enduring stress. So the first two, acute stress, can be a positive stress that can help in the growth of an individual. But third stress, the chronic stress, is long lasting stress which can affect the coping abilities of the student, and result can be any kind of psychological disorder or any mental health issues. Let us talk about the sign of stress in students. So like academic stress is exhibited throughout the wide range of bodily signs, and it can be included like cardiac activity, hypertension, accelerated breathing, adrenal hormonal level, migraines, excessive sweating, involuntary shaking, physical ache, weight, and sleep patterns. So all these are the parameters by which we can measure the academic stress by seeing the bodily signs. And then it influences the cognitive functions such as destructive thoughts, perceived tension, feeling of hopelessness, frustration, nervousness, guilt, restlessness, leading to behavior like unnecessary crying, self-harm, substance abuse, and aggression. So all these are the sign of stress in a student. Sign even can vary in the intensity and frequency, but overall these are the signs which we generally see in the student's life. Now, how to detect the academic stress or stress? So, there are various methods the clinician and professional uses. Stress can be measured when the human body starts behavioral and bodily reaction to the stressful event, such as fear, happiness, nervousness, irritation, repulsion, etc. There are various technical method that can be used or advanced method that can be used in measuring the stress or academic stress, that is EMG, which is called an electromyogram, EEG, that is electroencephalogram, and ECG, that is electrocardiogram. So these are the feedback which gives us the electrical activity that is going in the body, and we can measure the stress or the impact of stress, and this also helps in the management of stress by providing the feedback. So there are some physiological signs like sweating, salivary cortisol, high blood pressure, breathing, and heartbeat variability, by which we can measure and check whether the stress level or the stress is impacting the physiological system or not. Some other method like psychometric application, they are widely used to assess the stress, anxiety, or any sort of psychological problems in individual. There are some rating scale which we can use, like educational stress scale for adolescent, which is usually for the adolescents, and which measures in some dimensions like pressure from study, workload, worry about grades, despondency, and self expectation. So it is measured in the 5-point Likert scale. A sample item is like, I am under pressure because of my academic performance. So this is the scale that we can use. Another is the academic stress inventory, which we can use. The target population, that can be college or university students. Dimension it measures, that is performance anxiety, time constraint, and workload. It is also measured on the 5-point Likert or 7-point Likert rating scale. And example like, I feel overwhelmed by amount of school work or that I am having. Third is students stress inventory, which is also the target group can be the college students, and categories that is its measures are frustration, conflicts, pressure, changes, and self-imposed. So this can be used by seeing the categories, by seeing the dimension, whatever we want. As per that, we can use these kind of scales. Fourth is perceived academic stress scale. It is the target population is same, the university student, and dimension that is measured is academic expectation, faculty pressure, and workload. Other scale apart from measuring the academic stress that can be used is to measure the anxiety, depression, and any kind of suicidal ideation or hopelessness in the student. So scales can be used like BDI, which is known as Beck Depression Inventory, Beck scale for suicidal ideation, Beck Anxiety Inventory, and Beck Hopelessness scale. These scale can be used only by proper training and method. Now let us talk about the impact of stress. So the objective of formal education system was to make student physically, mentally, and professionally ready to handle life hurdles. However, during this process, the significant burden is experienced by them, and these substantial impact of academic stress can lead to various positive or negative outcome. So stress can have both positive and negative outcome. The positive stress that we can say as a eustress, and the negative outcome we usually say as a distress. And the eustress actually helps in the productivity, increasing the productivity and performance of the student. And distress is actually impacting negatively on their performance, their productivity. So eustress helps to increase their motivation, and distress decreases their motivation. Short term stress is basically can be useful for the student, especially when taking an exam, and it can positively impact the memory. And mild stress in same way can also improve the immune system, sharpen the body ability to deal with the injuries, illness such as infection, wounds, etc. So these two stresses, short term and mild, they can be called as a positive stress that helps in the development of immune system, development, the ability to tackle with future events or similar kind of stress, or even we can say to develop a resilience. And severe academic stress, that is linked with the poor mental health conditions, and regardless of factors such as gender, role, race, academic grade, anyone can impacted with this severe academic stress. As we earlier talked, that it can result into various mental health issues or mental disorders like anxiety, depression, and any other chronic issues as well. So there is one example, that is of COVID-19 pandemic, which was during 2020. So during this phase, the lockdown period was on, and the education was the most affected area, as the both teacher and student had to adapt a new condition such as online classes, papers, and tests to continue their learning process. So strong changes were made in the life habit, having to reorganize their daily routines to adjust themselves. Educational institute had to migrate to a completely virtual education in 2020, and need to adapt their academic model to ensure the health and well-being of the student. So this is the period where a significant change in the lifestyle, in the habit or the pattern of both the whole population in the country. And during this time, the lack of social contact, changes in the socialization, routines, deprivation from the extra academic activities, among other factors, affected the psycho-emotional state of the student. So the impact of this period, we can see it now as well. There are many studies which shows that it has significantly affected, and there is rise in the mental health issues approximately 40% in the current scenario. Now, talking about the techniques to mitigate the academic stress. So, first is the time management, then healthy lifestyle, relaxation techniques, study techniques, and social support. Time management is just to prioritize the task which need to be done first and which can be done afterwards. So the academic priority matrix, like what is urgent, what is not urgent, and what is important, what is not important, that student must specify and prioritize according to that. Then setting deadlines helps to progress, like progress is maintained due to the deadlines, and the students complete the task, they are actively engaged in that task if there is a like deadlines is being set for them. It can be set by self, or it can be some other faculties or teachers. Then avoiding procrastination. Procrastination is very common problem that every student faces in their day-to-day life. So students should spot time traps such as taking a long break, using social media over a long period, copying tasks among team members, etc. So procrastination has also some other important cognitive distortion that needs to be identified, like fear of failure, fear of success, perfectionism, and many other distortions are there which can be responsible for the procrastinating habit. Then is setting boundaries. So students should learn to avoid commitments and say no when is necessary. When students take on too much, they can be overloaded, and this help setting boundaries help them to prioritize academic tasks over unnecessary accountabilities. So setting boundary is very important to manage their own time. Then other is task directed. Like multitasking can be beneficial, but focusing on one task at a time is more effective, and it can be more productive than doing the multitasking things. Other is social support. Support from family, friend, loved ones is essential for the betterment psychological well-being and helps to reduce depressive and many other psychological symptoms. Then it also increases the self-esteem and reduces the likelihood of academic failure and decreasing the dropout rates that is happening. Healthy lifestyle, maintaining a balanced diet, engaging in regular physical activity, getting sufficient and peaceful sleep, and avoiding harmful substances. So these changes in lifestyle can help you to tackle with the stress that is coming from the academic or any other source of your life. Then, as we talked, the balanced diet is important. Because unbalanced diet, insufficient vitamin intake, and excessive fat consumption can disrupt the stress hormone regulation, which can further impact your psychological system, and that psychological system can impact your social system. And this vicious cycle could be maintained by this. Next is regular physical exercise like walking, running, cycling, swimming, and various sports and exercises are there that helps in enhancing the cognitive functions, brain performance, academic related outcomes, and while reducing the risk of cognitive impairment. So that's why the physical activity is important. Sufficient sleep is important, like sleep deprivation or irregular sleep schedule can significantly affect the grade and mood, increasing the risk of academic failure. So sleep hygiene needs to be maintained. For example, like caffeine intake must be reduced. Using of any gadget before going to sleep, that can be reduced. Approx 1 hour before, all the gadget can be kept away from yourself. And then the bed that needs to be clean, and the diet that you are taking at evening time, that also must be very light. Avoiding harmful substances, as we know that academic avoiding harmful substances, as we know that this is a phase where lots of changes and developments are ongoing when the student are in their academic lives. So to manage academic stress, to boost physical and mental well-being, student need to steer clear of harmful substances such as excessive fast food, tobacco and alcohol, substance use such as smoking and drinking alcohol, that is increasingly becoming trend among students, and that is impacting negatively in their academic performances. There is one article that is shown below, how the cannabis use is affecting the brain. It is a recent article which shows the long-term use of cannabis is actually significantly impacting the brain related changes in a student or in a individual. Some study techniques that can be used, like distributed learning practice, spreading out study session over various interval rather than cramming all, testing practices like practice tests before the final exams, and spaced repetition, reviewing and recalling the study materials on note at gradually increasing interval or to boost long-term memory. So these study techniques helps in the boosting memory, especially your long-term memory and working memory. There are some relaxation exercises like deep breathing, which is helping in the releasing tension from the body, ease the unsafe impact of the stress and anxiety related to exams. Progressive muscular relaxation is another behavioral technique that is used mostly in the anxiety issues. That is basically contraction and relaxation of one by one of each muscles in your body, and that works on the principle of reciprocal inhibition, that two things cannot persist at the same time. If the stress is there, then relaxation could not be there, and if you are doing the relaxation, then stress will not be there. So this PMR is working in this principle. Then other is mindfulness meditation, that is focusing on the present moment and helping student to reduce the overthinking associated with the future. And other is yoga, the relaxation technique combined physical posture, meditation, breathing exercises to reduce the psychological distress by boosting physical relaxation and the mental concentration. So you can go through this reference, the matter that has been taken from, and you can go through it. These are the references from where we have taken the subject matter. And thank you for your patience listening and your cooperation.